we can start posting links to those Slacks in the chat.
Yeah. Yeah. Slack.bostongamedev.com. Great community of people on that Slack. You're welcome to join, and you will hear all about the upcoming events and job announcements and fun development shenanigans. That's the best way to describe it, really, isn't it? So if you can't figure out which way is up, that's the place to go. So there we go. Okay.
Cool. Should we get started?
Let's get started. So, okay, first of all, our first speaker tonight is going to be Jake Baer. Jake, take it away.
Okay, let me share my screen. And this one, yep, okay. Can you all see that?
Not quite yet.
There's a message that you have started screen sharing.
Yeah.
This is the...
Okay.
Maybe try toggling it. I don't know.
It could be the wrong monitor.
Can you run it windowed? Oh.
Did I just disconnect?
Yes, I think you had some connection issues.
That's really weird.
Yeah, let's see if it works this time.
How about now?
That worked.
Nice.
Okay, cool. All right, so hi everyone. Today I'll be talking about legal localization by Carlos Wykes and how it works in Unity. Before we begin, I'll give a little introduction of myself. I've been in game development for 10 years. I run my own brand, Closed Umbrella Games, and I recently released my 7th game, Mythical Freaks, on iOS and Android. Feel free to email me or connect with me on LinkedIn. My info is right there. Okay. So lead localization is a Unity asset that stores different translations of the words that you include in your game. It also allows for visual components such as text, audio, and images to change languages dynamically at runtime. To save time, translations can also be loaded from a CSV file, which has been useful in localizing Mythical Freaks. For the asset to work, you need an instance of the included lean localization prefab in each of your seeds. This prefab will manage your translations and languages. It will also show the translations of each phrase as shown here. These are all screenshots from the project files in Mythical Freaks, since we're using that for it. To add a language, simply go to the localization prefab once you have it in the hierarchy, and go into languages and click add. There are a few default ones to choose from, but you can also add your own languages. And the default ones include different, The default ones include different culture codes, as you can see right here. So if you do create your own, you may have to add those manually. I'm actually not 100% sure if they're there by default or if you have to add them manually. But either way, you still get the language. So to add a phrase, stay in the localization prefab and search for a phrase. In this case, we'll use an example of hello. And if it isn't already there, you can add it. And if it is there, then it just fills out everything else. So it just shows you just that particular translation. So when you're adding it, it will create a game object child under the lean localization prefab, and will have a lean phase component attached to it. And in this component, you can add translations for each of the you can add translations of the phrase for each of the supported languages, and then this will in turn update the phrase in the lean localization prefab. So to switch languages between languages at runtime, there's a couple ways to do that. For a codeless solution, you can attach the set current language function to a UI button. But if you want a little more customization, you can also do this programmatically. And it also allows for saving language selections. You can do that in player prefs, but you can also do that in a saved data file. So if you wanted to serialize this info, that's doable too. That's what we did. That's what we're using for Mythical Freaks. In order for UI text to show translations, a lean localized text component must be attached to a text object. The phrase for that object can be set either through the inspector or through code similar to how you can change languages. This is pretty much the same workflow for displaying translations. While it's optional, I found that loading translations from a CSV file to be very useful. This can be done in anything that supports CSV files such as Excel or even Visual Studio Code, which is what we have here. When writing translations, you can define a separator that indicates when to separate a phrase from an actual translation. Once a CSV file is imported into Unity, you can create a prefab with the lean language CSV component. That's a special component that works specifically with this kind of workflow. So drop the CSV file into the source element, choose the language, and after clicking load now, your translations will be loaded automatically. Everything that's in that file will be loaded in here in the order that they are in the file. And the prefab can then be added to the localization prefab for general use. So where can you get this asset? Well, it's right from the asset store. And I have the link here. The QR code will also bring you to it if you want to scan it with your phone. And the best part, and this is, everyone loves this, it's free. Absolutely free. There's no freemium, there's no premium, it's all just free. So that's awesome. And that pretty much wraps up my presentation. I know it was a short one, but did anyone have any questions?
I don't see any chat questions out this time. I'm going to give you a big thumbs up. Well done for that QR code. We should have done that a long time ago, shouldn't we? All these links we keep giving out, and they're like, yeah, how are they going to type this in? We'll put them in the chat. That's fine. QR code. Scan it and off you go. So that's awesome.
I have a question actually. So you talked about like importing CSVs. Is that like the source file for the translations? And you're just sort of always referencing that as the source of truth, or is there a different workflow there?
So I actually went over a couple of them. There's the basic one, which is you just put in the translations manually. Mm-hmm. You do that with the lean phrase component. And the CSV workflow I find a little better because you can add all the translations into the file and then you can just add them in all at once. Whereas with the other workflow, you have to do that manually for each phrase, and that can be a little more time consuming than the CSV.
Cool. And does it use the English? Like, what does it use for a key for the translated text? Does it just use the English version of it, or is there a special name for things, or?
So you have like the phrase. Let's call the phrase the key, and the key is what you would want is basically represents the same word, but it contains each version of the same word in its respective language. So if you had hello, you would, let's say you put that in the code, you tell it get translation text hello, mm-hmm. And then based on language that you have chosen, it would say it could be hola or bonjour, konnichiwa, mm-hmm. Depending on the language that's set. So really, the phrase is mainly it's like a key. It's like a dictionary. It's like a key, and then the values are the different translations.
Cool. Yeah, the reason I asked is mostly because some systems use like you'd have a separate key that's like the name of the phrase or whatever, and then the actual text of the phrase, and those are two different things. But I think this way makes a whole lot more sense, because if your phrase changes, you don't have to mark a key as something that needs to be retranslated, for instance. Cool, thank you.
Oh, we just got Jake. Do you want to stop sharing at this point?
Oh, sure.
Excellent. Yeah, we just got raided. Hello to Voodoo Gaming Studio, your party of 4.
Nice.
Yeah, welcome. We're welcoming to all comers. So yeah, this is great. Okay, we have okay, our next talk. So yeah, for the newcomers to the stream, we have a lightning talk session tonight. So this is basically just short talks, and yes, it's almost like work. Don't worry, it's not that bad though. Yes, this is a lot less stressful than work. So next up we have a talk from Caio. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, no, that's actually 100% correct.
Okay, perfect. And Caio, I believe you're talking about some audio fun.
Yeah.
So over to you.
Sure, thank you. So hello, my name is Caio. Just a quick introduction. I am a composer and sound designer for games. I'm finishing my undergrad at Berklee College of Music. And I'm also one of the Game Audio Boston's co-organizer, which is the meetup group for the Game Audio Boston, for the game audio people over the Boston area. And I'm also like a hobbyist developer. Actually, I'm gonna talk about one specific issue with music that you might or might not have encountered, which is the notion of reverb tail loops. And okay, so what does that mean? First off, can I just check if everybody can hear this? Oops, that's a bit loud. Is the sound working?
Sound seems to be working, yeah.
Okay, so basically what a reverb tail is if you have like a piece of music that just plays. Once the music ends, there's still like what we call the reverb tail, which is just the decay of the room around it with reverb that does it. So when you're creating like a loop to play in a game, like that's something that has to be considered. Most times this is not an issue. Most times you can just, render out the audio and cut the reverb tail and put in the beginning and you loop correctly. But in an instance like this, that it has like really long tail, it becomes an issue when you just cut the tail and put it at the beginning. And in this case, it would sound something like this. So as opposed to the music starting like this, like with the slow swell, if nothing, it already starts sounding kind of a bit off. There's this like weird bump here. And for most cases, you can just like do that and like do a loop and set an audio source to loop and it will work. But what do you do if you have a piece of music that once you do that starts kind of wrong? So if I just take this and export it and put into Unity, and that's what I have here, what I call the edited loop, the loop with the reverb tail embedded into the asset itself, and set to play on awake and loop, and I just play the audio source. I don't hear any sound. That is not something that I was expecting. What? Oh my, technical issues. But okay,
live demos, huh?
Live demos, right. So just skipping that, the point that I make is that if I just like started playing like this from scene in Unity, it would already start sounding sort of off, like it doesn't sound right, and that can color the player's perception of how like the music behaves, because it already starts sounding with this weird hiccup here. So instead of like rendering this and editing the tail and cutting here, what the optimal way to approach this scenario is you render out the asset as it is with the tail at the end. And you import that into Unity. And you want to create a script that concatenates the audio file. What I mean by that is using the audio source play schedule function, which basically, so it utilizes the audio settings.dsp time, which is an independent time for the audio engine in Unity that counts based on like the music samples, and it's independent from frame rate. So that way you can create very accurate, transitions and concatenation of files. And so the way like I would go about like taking this asset that's just, not edited to loop and looping it would be by first creating, I like to do with like a parent object called, I usually call it just like the reverb tail loop. And just to show linearly what it would look like, what we're trying to do is do something like this, where you have when it starts playing back, it doesn't have the reverb tail here, but when it loops, it has the reverb tail overlapping the loop. So just to make it sound natural. So just to make it sound like really like they just started playing and don't have the reverb tail here. And then when it got to the loop, it has the reverb tail that makes it sound like a seamless loop. If it didn't have the reverb tail there and I just looped it, it would sound like this. You want to wait? Oh, my things are crashing. I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm maybe nervous. It would sound like this if I didn't have the reverb tail there. Which now that sounds like a mistake. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to have two audio sources. One that will be playing the audio file and another that will be scheduled to concatenate the loop. And so basically you want to start by just declaring, and I just have this for reference, but we're gonna like build the script, and it's rather short. So these are going to be like our three main variables. One is an array of two audio sources. One is the audio clip that you want to loop, and the other is your loop duration, like how long should the loop last. And you can get the loop duration pretty easily from like, you can ask for a composer to it, or if you're writing the music yourself, you can just like it's pretty easy to see in any audio editing software. This loop has a 10.666 second loop. And it's important that it's a double, because that's what play schedule uses on our argument. It's a double. So if you just go and compile and please don't crash. And just attach the script, and this is just my reference. Then we can just like assign our two audio sources to it and assign the audio clip that we want, which is this one, and then type in our loop duration inspector, or you can like hard code it depending. The next thing that you want to do is we want to first assign the audio clip to each of the audio sources, and you can do start and away, you can do it manually. This is just like a for each loop that takes the array and assigns the desired clip to the audio sources. And then the most important thing that you want to get is you want to get a reference to the current audio settings.dsp time, which as soon as the scene starts playing, it's regardless if you're playing audio or not, the DSP time of the audio settings start counting. So right before we play our clips, we want to first get a double reference, a double variable that will hold our current, sorry, I'm just a bit nervous. We want to have a double variable that will tell our audio settings DSP time when the next loop's gonna start. And play schedule works best when it has like a delay. So instead of like saying next loop start equal just audio settings dot DSP time. So this would get the current DSP time when the game starts. if we do that, like it may work, but play schedule is like the name of a function, like it works better when you schedule something in advance. It's often advisable to just add a offset to the time. And then you can like just put that in a variable, whatever double, and offset. So what this means is that the loop will start on the current time of the DSP time plus however soon you want to. So 0.1 I find is like a good number if you want things to start instantly, because it's not too long to be noticeable, but it also gives like the engine like time to like actually schedule it and do whatever the method does. So on the update now, we want to check if the audio settings.dsp time is greater than the next loop start. And then we want to do it to play. And then if the current DSP time is greater than the loop start time, we want it to play the file. So we like concatenate the loop. So for the first one, we just want to play it as it is, but for the next ones, we want to increment the loop start time by the loop duration. So we can just do a simple if statement. So if audio settings the DSP time greater than the next loop start. And then since we have like a time offset here that is increasing, that like is delaying a bit, we want to like discount that when you're checking for it, just so it lines up perfectly. Because otherwise, if it didn't subtract the time offset and just did that, it would just play it would just concatenate it by a 0.1 second delay, because that's embedded into your next loop start. So we just want to like make sure to discount the whatever offset you put when you're checking on the update to schedule the next audio source. And then we can just do also, we need like a quick way that I found to just switch between an array of two. It's just you have like a variable that's an integer called index toggle. And then you just do it index toggle minus index toggle. That way it will keep changing the value between 0 and 1. So we can use that to dynamically switch which audio source we're scheduling. And then next, we want to schedule an audio source. So it's just audio source dot brackets index toggle, and then dot play schedule and the next loop start as the argument. So now if the current DSP time is greater than the next loop start minus the offset, it will schedule the audio source to play at the next loop point. So in that way, because on start we are getting the starting DSP time plus the time offset, it will just start playing once the scene starts. So now we just want to like keep incrementing it and keep changing it. So then the only thing that we have left to do is to increment the next loop start by the loop duration value. And then that's it. And at the end, I just like to like put a print just to make sure things work. And hopefully we can hear it if I can share sound. But this is the sort of like the bone of the system, just using the DSP time to make sure that the concatenation is as accurate as possible to the audio engine, instead of it being frame rate dependent. And just having two audio sources, because you can't schedule an audio source that's already playing. That's like the reason why like you can't really do with a one shot with using one audio source, because you can use like play schedule that way, and you can, and because you have to schedule audio source that's not playing, you need two so they can like do this. So basically one audio source finishes playing the reverb tail while the others begin playing the loop. So now if we try to see if we can hear anything. Hopefully we can. We can't, but I'm really sorry. I wasn't expecting was not to be able to not hear a Unity audio through Zoom. That is.
What if you share Unity directly rather than sharing your editor? That might be the trick.
Right. Let me
funky
try
that way.
that.
So hopefully that might work.
Yeah, I do have share sound checked off, so that
Okay.
shouldn't be a problem. So Unity sample C. Sure.
Oh.
Okay, could everyone hear that?
No.
No. It's like now it played for me. Let me check
You
my
could put your microphone up to the
the speakers.
Old school
Yeah,
style.
it is. Yeah, it's
Put
set
the
as
cell
Zoom. Well, let me try something. If not, I'll try putting my microphone to the speakers. And yeah. Still no sound. Oh, okay, this is awkward.
We believe you.
Thank you. I do appreciate the encouragement.
We have all given presentations where this sort of thing has happened. It's okay.
Let me try.
Yeah, Zoom has
How can I
like audio output or mic input.
Yeah. 1 second. I might try doing something that's convoluted, but okay. I think let me stop sharing. What if I can use like the loop back for it?
I wonder if you need to set the audio output settings in the system preferences or something.
He's on a Mac, I notice.
Yep.
I am on a Mac. Can everyone hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay. I try like.
Now we cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. No, that makes sense.
Now we can hear you.
Let me try it again. So. Do we have sound?
No.
Ah! Okay, can I put my microphone on the speaker without getting a feedback loop?
It's worth a try.
It's worth a try. Okay. Let me turn on the speakers.
If we hear feedback, we'll wave at you and then you can just mute.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so yeah. Everyone be mindful of your volumes, please. We're trying to do something that's not recommended at all.
I have my finger on the stream mute button.
Yes.
Just in case.
Can everyone hear the sound? Or no? Okay.
Kind of, not really.
Right.
We can hear something. It wasn't quite what you were aiming for, though. I don't think.
Maybe last ditch effort would be to make a build.
Yes. I get. Yes. Let me try that.
Well, it's an option. Don't worry. I mean,
But basically, the gist of it is, well, ideally, we want to make music in games sound as natural as possible. And when when I have like musicians playing, they don't start playing with a reverb tail from the previous loop coming in. And the idea behind that is to make it so have the best of both worlds, to have a loop and have it start as naturally as possible. So as to make the experience like as organic as possible, and to make it so you can start without sounding a reverb tail loop. at the beginning, and then have the reverb tail when you loop to make it seamless. And the way to do it, the most accurate way to do it is using accessing audio settings.dsp time to Unity and using play schedule to schedule your audio sources and concatenating them. So yeah, I don't want to take much more time to troubleshooting technicalities. So I think we can just leave it at that. And I can try to make a build and see if I can play something at the end, maybe. Anyway.
That's fantastic, though. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. And if you're interested in like learning more about play schedule and audio programming, there's this really excellent blog by John Leonard French called Game Dev Beginner, with this article called How to Queue Audio Clips in Unity, the Ultimate Guide to Play Schedule. It goes through all that I talked about, plus some extra stuff, especially if, like doing like beat syncing. If you like want to like make like something like sync to like a riffing for like a riffing game, or just like a more complex music system, like this covered that in the article. It is pretty easier than I thought it was when I like didn't know about it. Like very straightforward, and I can like maybe drop it in the Zoom. But yeah, that is.
I'll put that in the chat. Thank you.
Nice.
Yeah, of course. Well, thank you so much for having me, and sorry about the the technical difficulties.
That's fine. This is kind of why lightning tours are a great way to try out doing little presentations, because they're you may not be used to doing long format presentations, or you may not be up for doing a long format presentation, but doing a short presentation on a small condensed topic is great. And this is why we very much appreciate you taking the time to talk about it tonight.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much.
Do you have like built-in tools with the Unity sound system? I'm not a sound engineer. Do you have built-in tools for things like crossfading and things like that you can do? No, not at all.
Yeah, so like Unity is like very behind in terms of audio, especially when I compare to Unreal. I think the last thing they added is like the audio mixer, which is like a few years ago. But and it can do some like very rudimentary crossfading, but it's not really the most scalable way to do it. If you're using the audio mixer to crossfade with snapshots, it's not really scalable. So ideally, you want to script your own crossfade coroutines from audio sources directly. But yeah, basically, Unity just gives us an audio engine that counts samples very accurately, and an audio mixer and say, hey, do what you want with it without any other sort of pre-built materials. And if you go like, if I dare compare it to Unreal has like building fades methods for fades and a lot more accessible ways to create interactive audio systems. And Unity is very like, you can do a lot of stuff in Unity, but you have to really dig in deep to know like what you can do with it. It's not really showcased in the most accessible way yet.
I hate to surface the cliche, but I mean, what's the last thing I ever thought about in game development? It's like
yeah, exactly.
So like Unity fell for that too.
Which is like like literally Unity like fell for the trap of leaving audio last. Come on.
Yeah.
How would you compare like this sort of experience of scripting your own custom looping situation to something that you would experience in like WWise or Fmod or something like that? I'm super unfamiliar with those tools, so I don't know if they cover any of this or if the problem is the same there.
No, the thing like Fmod and Wise, they make it really easier to do what I just did, to loop a reverb tail, which is very much a non-issue when it comes to like scripting. It's like, especially like it's a bit trickier on Fmod to do it, but especially with Wise makes it really easy to do what I just did, to just play an audio file without reverb tail and then take into the account the reverb tail when it loops. It's no different, and when scripting it on Unity, it's no different than just telling Wise to play an event. It's just like one line of code saying post events.post. And then like, it doesn't matter what you have, but yeah, it just makes it easier to do this kind of things instead of having to like write your own looping system from scratch.
Mm-hmm. And is it like crazy to think about if there was reverb in Unity, like would that solve this problem, or is it more like the reverb that you're getting in, your DSP is much better than the one you would get in Unity, so you wouldn't want to use
Yeah, Unity has reverb
it? Okay.
in it, but the when it comes to like music mixing, reverb's like it's very like specific, the levels. If you did like reverb to Unity, you would have like one reverb for the whole music mix.
Got
And
it, yeah.
when you like, especially with music, you want to like have like more fine balance control of what you're saying to the reverb, how levels. Reverbs in game engines, they are more used to like for like localize sound effects and put sound effects in a space. Because you usually want to, like, if you have a footstep, you don't want to export it as an asset with reverb because you don't know if the footstep gonna sound like on an open field or like in a closed room. So you use like in-engine reverb more for like sound effects and for like music per se. Of course, it's just like a general guideline, and you can do like, there are no rules, but there are like some best practices when it comes to like using reverb in engine.
Very cool.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much.
Oh, yeah, thank you so much for having me.
We don't often get audio presentations at bug
Right.
meetings because we seem to end up clashing on our presentation decks with Game Audio Boston quite frequently. Hasn't happened recently, but it has happened a few times in the past.
Yeah, it happened on like our first Game Audio Boston meeting of this year, because like we changed the leadership and like brought me and like some people in, and then like we realized that because we should like, we're gonna do the last Wednesday of the month, then we changed for like second to last Wednesday of the month, so you wouldn't clash anymore. So that problem is now fixed.
If anyone is thinking about starting a meetup group, this is like the hardest thing about doing a meetup group is scheduling and trying to fit the puzzle pieces in with everyone else. So no worries there.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Cool.
Okay. Elliott, did you say you had something you wanted to share?
Yeah, I kind of whipped something up. But I do want to say that I think I can only remember 2 other audio presentations in the history of Bug. I could be wrong. One was Chris Mayer did something on Wise like forever ago. And then choreographer.
Yeah.
I think Eric Robinson. Anyway.
Well,
yeah.
Glad to be the third.
Yeah. We need more.
Yeah.
We need more.
Please, we it's not for we'd love to have more of them. I guess.
Right. I can definitely try to get more people to do it.
That'd be wonderful. Thank you.
All right, I think I'm sharing my screen with my little thing. So, hey, I'm Elliott, and that's my Twitter address. That's kind of what I'm turning into 2.5 years into COVID, and I'm one of the organizers of Bug, and I make games. This is my AR iOS game, Waggle Words. It did pretty well, and working on a VR project and work on everything from like cutting edge, like HD volumetric filmmaking for festivals, to like Commodore 64 games and stuff like that. And so one thing I'm going to talk about today, sort of as a last minute thing, was this project I worked on called Disillusion. And it was a holographic film in the Jeu de Paume that just premiered in Paris. And it ran on this device right here, the Voxon, and it's like a Nook computer inside, and there's like this this screen that vibrates really quickly and has this persistence of vision and makes a 3D hologram that you can walk around. It's an incredibly charming 80s vision of the future, I would say. Like, it's really cool and magical to see it in action, but it's like probably the most difficult project I've ever worked on, because it's all voxel based. And so like you get the color channel and that's it out of a shader. You don't get anything else. And so like when we want to do water waves or like any like lighting, like everything, like you have to reverse engineer how a shader would work to get waves like on the Geo and all this. So this wound up being a rendered out film. So I'll just go into this a little bit more. So it's a Unity project. And what this is that we have volumetric film capture, like what the scene, I'll just actually show you the first thing just to compare. But like, hey, here's this like ugly scene with this ugly thing. And there's this shape here. You see, this is like the render volume. That's the same aspect ratio as the display itself. And so you want to make sure everything's inside this. But when it renders, it actually looks more like this, because it's a hologram, and it like black is just transparent. It's almost like, you know, how AR works. Here's my family around the thing looking at it while it's in the studio. Here's this shot in the studio, and it doesn't really have this ambient blue around it. That's just sort of because I had a long exposure rate. And then I'll just have a little movie of just a capture. And that sound, I don't know if you can hear it. But it's much smoother than that. There's some like shutter speed issues. But I just wanted to give you a sense of like what this thing is kind of like. So it had an installation in the Jiacomini Museum in Paris, in a basement in a black room with cameras on it from different angles, subtitle screens that we had to synchronize with audio and the volume, the voxel playback. It was kind of crazy. It's a 12-minute piece. So I'm just going to show you sort of like, so here's like, say if I press play, it's going to try to render it, but there's this SDK, but like, here's a quick video of capture of, it runs on your computer as an emulator. So you can like rotating. Oh, and by the way, when you rotate these models, it recalculates every voxel, every frame. But if you rotate the camera, it doesn't. There's like all these weird gotchas. And so like that glitch you just saw, like I actually had to take, I used Unity Recorder and ran deformers through and recorded alembic streams out of it. So like instead of a video glitch you do in a shader or a full screen effect, it's actually done to a mesh as an alembic file. So obviously this thing will never run on device. So that's why we had to wind up like recording a volumetric film. And so this is a flat recording of the emulator. And there's all kinds of crazy effects with, this is actually volumetric capture.
The world experienced as objects.
There's no lighting, but we did.
Bashed my organs into pulp.
I recreated a scene from Tron. With
all my teeth are ideas.
Whoa. Okay. Anyway, but there's no real lighting in it. It's all surface. We had all like effects that you would think of shader effects. That's actually like meshes. It's crazy. And then I'll just show you a scene. Some of these can take hours to render out because of the meshes. But yeah, so like this octopus scene, I'm gonna turn it down, but I'll just play part of it.
Funneling crypto surging.
The audio doesn't matter as much, but it's like
mining. Be quiet. It surges through my body, and it makes
so like we had to do like
I'm almost kind of a
blend shapes and alembics for like this part you're about to see.
Value. I process it. I clean it. I soak its poisons into my lungs. And I let it emerge as beautiful things.
And it's meant to be viewed from like 360 degrees.
Birthing them from my forehead like Diana. Pouring out
So like
my severed neck
that explosion
like
is like I recreated in like Blender and output alembic simulations to the size of the volume, and it kind of blew away the SDK makers. They're based in Australia. But when you look at this like in a scene, just quickly, I think that's scene 11. Right, it looks like this, which is like nothing like what you just saw. And so you don't know what it looks like until it renders out in the emulator. And so, yeah. And with the Alembic and Unity Recorder and Timeline, you can like scroll back and forth through the simulations, but like that does not look anything like what you just saw. And so you really never know what it looks like until you render, and it can take like hours. It's a very complex project, about 88 gigabytes of data. What I did want to show you is how we work is this, there's actually like this is a simulation of the 3D interface. And so like you have a 3D space mouse that you can navigate through like in this 80s style thing. So like here's captures and then it goes into this. This is like a 2D representation of the 3D volumetric displays interface. So like, yeah, just go in here and then, you know, you go through this 3D interface, you know, and then
I'm here. Electricity surging through me until you run out.
And so that's like how we test our scenes. It's totally crazy, and you can't embed audio. What these are is zip files with voxel images sequences that we then have to sync audio through Raspberry Pi with like players and stuff. It's like so crazy. Yeah, but it's kind of fun. But again, this is like basic stuff. You can fast forward. The other thing which I took care of, I'm just gonna fast forward for a second.
Glinting in the gallery, constantly
so like again, the director's like, hey, we have this grid, can we light it? But it can't take lights. And then can we have a wave come and crash the grid? And so like on that kind of thing, I made a 3-dimensional grid out of thousands of cubes with physics objects that then I apply something to blow them apart as an alembic wave comes in. It's all stuff you could like do in shaders and whatever, but you can't do it on this. It was kind of nightmarish in a lot of ways, but seeing that thing run, and then it actually like survived several days on the first machine in the museum before it broke because it ran 12 hours, 11 hours a day. Then we had a backup machine and they ran that while they fixed the springs on the other one because it was never meant to run that long. I think it had 8 gigs of RAM, no GPU, and it's a little Nook. So like this was never meant to play on this. But anyway, the other thing I didn't say that was the other problematic part of this project was that by default, when you turn this thing on, like you can't see your mouse or use it. So you have to go into like this weird menu thing and like tell it not to pay attention to your mouse. It was just like so hard. But it was so fun in the end when it was, you know, a complete project. So again, I think, yeah, it's pretty cool. The Voxon, they do have a new device that instead of this thing vibrating up and down, it's larger and it spins on an axis. And so it's less noisy and less higher frame rate and more resolution. I can't remember what they said, but it was like tons and tons of voxels more. Anyway, this is probably my most unusual Unity project, where none of the rules of game development or volumetric filmmaking or Unity apply. Like they just don't. So I'll leave it at that and stop sharing.
Oh my god, that's so crazy. I love it.
I've never seen anything like it. That is amazing.
Thanks. Now I'm trying to find Zoom to unshare.
It's just not just me that can't find it. Then it'll be on the other monitor.
Oh my god!
At the top.
Stop sharing. There it is.
There
Yeah. Yeah, it was literally like, and the development team was spread between California, New York, Vermont, Western Mass, like New England, New York, and then New South Wales or something like that. And so like, oh, and Paris. Yeah. So it was challenging. Half my gray hair. The other half was COVID stuff, but
yeah, wow. I mean, you say the device had never been intended to run for 11 hours straight.
No,
so
it
what
literally
was their
is
intended
like
use for it then?
Like
I'm not sure. It was more like a demo thing. Like, hey, here's this thing. Like, you show something for a few minutes. And they have like little 3D Pac-Man game in it, and they have like they can show like 3D calculators and stuff, which are pretty cool. Little things, but it never was intended to run that long. And it's like a physical. It's like a steampunk hologram machine in a way. Very physical and noisy, and sounds like a projector from like, you know, the 70s or something. It's like, but yeah, like when we showed the SDK makers and we worked with them hand in hand on a lot of stuff. But like when we showed them the piece, they were like, what we're going to do, they were like freaking out. Like, this was never intended for this. And then like they saw it and they're like, oh my God, like I can't believe you guys pulled it off. Yeah. I'd actually say another Western Mass or Boston area game developer, Matt Brailsford, worked on it a little bit too. Doing special effects, things that you do in shaders, but doing straight to geometry through timeline programmatically and all that. It was really, I learned a lot about shaders by doing this, by reverse engineering shaders. And it's like a weird way, like cat-like coding and turn it to work on geometry instead. So I don't know.
Wild.
Someday.
I dread to say it. Did the audience have any questions?
I think there was like one comment through the whole thing that just says nuts.
Nuts. So pretty much sums it up.
I won't go on about it much more, but I was working on this pretty much 3/4 time, full time, while also working on a music game application for VR at the same time, 3/4 full time for like 6 months. And so like it's bouncing between like Oculus Quest challenges and like the Xbox On challenges, and they're a different set. But it's just like, God, I just want to like make something for like a PC with a GTX 3080 Ti or something. Please.
Make a platformer. There you go. Problem solved. Awesome.
Cool.
All right.
Chris, did you have something you wanted to show too? Or
I can show it. Like after that, I mean,
yeah.
Do it.
All right. All right. You twisted my arm. Where did it go? Unity. I found you. All right. I'm going to put this over here. I just moved my windows around, so please excuse me just for a moment. Thankfully, Graham is streaming this, so I don't have quite so many buttons to worry about right now. Share screen. Should I just share the whole screen, or should I just share the app? Let's try sharing this. There we go. Hopefully this is working. Do you all see my screen?
Yep.
Okay, great. So this is a very short, fun thing I played with. A friend of mine was looking for a typing tutor for her son, who's about 5, and wanted to learn to type. And I was like, okay, well, sure, there's an app for that. I mean, this is one of those things. We've all learned to type. We've all done this. And all the apps are full of like ad infested malarkey. So I made one in a couple of hours, and I spent a couple more hours tinkering with it because I was having fun making it. So this is my crappy game. I think it's called Type Blast. I can't be entirely sure. I think I did look around to see who had grabbed what names that involves the words word. Obviously, that's a very popular word when it comes to word-related games. So anyway, I called it Type Blast. Let's go for long words, 4 letters long. I'm going to give a hard difficulty tonight because I feel like a challenge. So now you get to judge my typing skills. So I have to type in the word correctly, and then it goes away. But if I mess up, ooh, no, I can't type the letter M. And eventually I get it right. But then I could leave it going, and then if I don't get it right, it will end the game. Boom. So that was it. It was a simple game. So there were some, I think there were some particles at the end of that to celebrate my victory. But anyway, what is it? It's a Unity has gravity, doesn't it? So let's just use that. So I started off with a letter block. It's literally a letter on a block. We have a cube, which has a canvas and a text on it with a letter. So, okay, great. And I can make this a Windows key plus. Come on, can do zoom. Come on, magnifier. Here we go. Magnifier. Here we go. All right. Got the magnifier working now. Normally I get this all set up ahead of time. The block has a rigid body component. So here we can set things like how heavy is it. That comes in handy when you want to make things a little bit more difficult, because if you make things heavier, more mass, then, you know, the drag will have different effects: physics, gravity, force equals mass times acceleration. So anyway, it's a block, it falls under gravity. This is great. I added some particle effects, as you saw, my beautiful particle system that plays some stars when you get it right. What else did I do with this thing? I had some basic state management so that if you are playing the game and you want to have a high score, we need to track your high score. So I'm using game object variables from the scriptable object architecture library, which I talked about a couple of months ago. Still hooked on those things. They're very useful. This one just tracks my high score. This one tracks my current score. This one's for my letter streak. So when I type consecutive letters in, I get the streak. Theoretically, you could have rewards for getting high streaks and things like that. I have a couple of events for start and finish. And I have a couple of word lists that I grabbed off the internet from kid-friendly sites. So they should be good words. Let's have a look. What is word list 3 look like? This is going to open in Notepad today. Okay, great. And it's white. Good God, that's bright. Okay, come here. There we go. Did I share? I shared the...
You just shared
you can't.
Unity.
I just shared Unity, didn't I? All right, well, I can see it in here. Word list 3. So here's word list 3. This is the answers. So if you're trying to swap for the test, these are the answers right here now. So if you want to type the word poor, that's how you type the word poor. That's the word letters. Right, that's 3s, that's the 4s. I made it think so you could make it 5 as well. That was something else I made. So I have my configuration UI, which you saw at the start of the game, which means I can choose how many letters in a word. I have basic setup. Let me see, I haven't even launched VS Code. That's how slack I am. Come on, Control Plus. There we go, big text. So the game behavior has...
You're still only showing Unity, by the way.
I'm still only showing Unity. You know, that's just damned inconvenient, isn't it? Let's stop that share screen.
I mean, but there was a big A on the screen.
There was a big A on the screen. Wow. A for effort. How about that? Now that should be sharing.
Yep.
The whole monitor. Right. So everything on this screen now is going live. So let's not show anything bad on there. There's the prefab that I want to instantiate for each of the letters in the word. Here's my current state. And I know because I've got a list of the words that I can use, there's a list of the words that are remaining. I can take the words off the list and shuffle them around and then start showing them to the people and make sure that they don't see the same word twice, not until they've run out of all the words, because you don't want to be typing the word cat 4 times over. You already know there's a cat on your desk trying to use your computer. So yeah, I mean, this is fairly basic Unity stuff. I'm just putting them at this position in the world. And then I have a couple of listeners for has the game been started or reset. And then for up to 8 blocks. So I made it so you could type in up to 8-letter words. I haven't got that far in development because this was only a few hours worth of work. You just want to add blocks that are going to be used to make your word. So reset the game. So we split out my list of words from the CSV, shuffle the words, and start over. So if I've started, I count how many words are left. And then, oh yes, I make sure they're all uppercase to make it much easier to render. It looks a little clearer in that font. Yeah, make the words. So as soon as I type a key, I want to tell if this is the correct key or not. So I'm just using input any key down. This is using the old school input bindings. This is not using the new input system from Unity. That's a different talk. I've used both. This is fine for a demo that was made in 2 hours. The did you get it right? If you got it right, good for you. But we're not yet finished. So we've got to keep typing the word. As soon as we've correctly completed the word, then we can make it faster. So the more words you get right, the faster the game goes, which I thought would be quite a fun little challenge as you get more cocky. You're thinking, I'm doing really well at this. And then suddenly it gets quite difficult. And actually then you start failing. But anyway, so yeah, it just waits at the end for a moment to show your particles if you have successfully won, and then it'll start again. Simple as that. And there's my state. So this is changing the drag. That's how I did it. You see, I'd forgotten how I did that. I even had an expert difficulty that's not yet implemented in the game, but that was for when you wanted to make it really challenging. And there was speed increases that I could set for hard or expert mode that were slightly more challenging. And that's about it. Each block has its own little behavior. Wake up the rigid body when you reset them. And I think what I do is actually I let them go down to the bottom of the screen and then put them back to the top again. Rather than recreating blocks, you don't need to keep recreating game objects. You're going to reuse them. So we reuse them. We just move the block to the top of the screen, change the letter as appropriate, and then drop it down when the time is right. When I hit the ground, if we're not game over, now we're game over, and we raise the game over event. And that's about it, I think. There's a little utils class that I made for splitting up the input string. So usually when you create a text asset, it's a chunk of text and you do stuff with it. So I can use a string reader to do that, and then shuffle the list with a good old-fashioned shuffle thingy. What's it? Code that I found does a shuffle.
Yeah,
it worked.
I was going to ask you, how do you randomize that? How do you shuffle it?
Oh, the Google's your friend. Google's your friend. I was like, I'll just use that one. I haven't. When you're in a hurry, you don't want to have to think it through. I had a lot of things to think through. Like, what color were the blocks going to be? You know, did they want to bounce or float? I was thinking it would be quite fun to have little balloons attached to each of the letter blocks to make it like a fun sort of, you know, make it a little bit easier. Because, you know, art, but I don't art. I'm a developer, so there was that. And that was it. So yeah, the only things of note that were fun and interesting out of that lot were the scriptable object architecture stuff that I added. There's the game events that whilst you're running, I think you can just raise them. Raise the game start event. It didn't quite work. There we go. And then we'll just say game over. Where's game over? There we go. Raise that back to the beginning. Obviously untested, doing it live now.
Is this using a framework that you made yourself, or is this something that is out there, or like, can you talk more to that?
I just made it myself.
Yeah.
I want to just drop the blocks down the screen. So I got some words, chopped them up into arrays, and then just took each letter and put them on each block. And then I said, when you want to go, you just make the block fall under the weight of gravity, and as soon as it hits the ground, then the game's over. But if you correctly guessed the block, then you get to carry on. So it was like a game jam of my own devising. I challenged myself. How hard can it be? It's worth doing that occasionally, because you're in the middle of something else and you're getting stuck on a big meaty challenge when you're working on a game or a project of any kind, and sometimes you feel like, I want to make something fun, I want to have a win, I need a win. And this was I need a win for a Friday afternoon, and the other thing wasn't going to get done, so I worked on this. And it's like, yep, this is fine. I can do this, and not only can I do this and make it work, but I can also enjoy myself in the process and improve my own typing skills. So there we go.
That's very cool. All it's missing is David Lynch narrating it, doing voiceovers.
If you can believe it, it's home once again.
There we go. So that was my silly little game that I made. But cool. That's it. That will do.
Nice. When can we wishlist it on Steam?
If I can make audio for it, and if I can make art for it, then I think it could go on Steam at that point. Nice. Or maybe phones. I mean, it's probably a phone app, really. Or I built it for WebGL so people could play with it, because that was easy to do as well. It's the fun of working on something that's not challenging, is that you can put it on pretty much any platform. So that was good. But yes, I know my limits. I can make things that are functional.
So it's such a fun story, though, that you made it for your friend's kid. It's really special.
Yeah, that's fun.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah, I've got nothing more to add to that.
Yeah, I got nothing. I think we're ready to wrap up.
Indeed. Thank you everyone for coming tonight.
Yeah.
And thank you very much to Jake and Caio for presenting. And thank you very much to Elliott for showing us the most insane project I've ever seen.
Thank you to Chris.
I'm still processing that.
Same.
Yeah, it's going to be a while to fully understand the depth of wow. Yeah, awesome work. So there are 2 JetBrains Rider licenses. I don't know how we're going to give them away though, folks.
First person to say octopus in chat gets it.
Yeah, first two octopi.
Wait a
to arrive in
minute.
chat.
First octopus, maybe. I have a question.
You have a question? Okay.
Yes.
1 octopus. All right.
Okay.
Hey,
All right. The
Desolus.
question is, what is the term used when you string together a bunch of audio clips or sources?
Oh, that's
when
a good
you're...
one.
Well, that's a good one. That's a good question. All right, so the second license will go to the person who can answer that question.
We
Actually,
heard the
challenge.
term many times. A little bit.
It's
The
not
term
octopus
is not
now.
octopus. Yeah.
Sorry, Matthew Human. It is not octopus.
I don't know if anyone's
The
gonna
spelling counts.
get it. No, spelling doesn't
Only
count.
in real life.
Octopus would fit in my game. I could make the game just all about spelling the word octopus. That would be quite cute. Repeat the question. Oh, Matthew Human got it.
There we go.
He got it.
Nice.
Nice.
Yes.
Cool.
That's
This is my
literally
word
a
of the day.
concatenation.
Yes.
Concatenation is the word of the day. That's fantastic. It worked. All right, Matthew, please message. Message.
That was quite a comeback.
Yeah,
I'll message
awesome.
you as well.
I think
Pop quiz.
Matthew's
Paying
determined.
attention.
Your email address. And I think I have Mark's already. Desolus Dev. Nice work. Yeah, that's fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming to see us tonight. And we'll be back next month.
Yeah.
Yes.
June 29th. So if anybody has things they want to talk about in the community, we're always open to having people propose stuff. Like we're pretty laid back when it comes to this sort of thing. It's not like, I don't know, some proposal like GDC talk kind of thing. So it's nowhere near that formal. So yeah, just get in touch with us. You can find us on the Slack, or I think there's like an admins@bostonunitygroup.com email that goes down there.
We're also on Twitter at Boston Unity Group or Boston Unity Group.
Yes, Boss Unity Group is our Twitter handle. You can
With one S, not like
Boos.
Boos.
I'm just gonna go home and yell Boos.
I'm not going to live that down, am I? That's been recorded. That's never going to leave me now.
I love it.
Thank you, everybody.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone.
right.
We will see you next time.
Bye.
Cheers.
Thanks again. Have a good night.